WPSC-FM 88.7, Wayne, New Jersey.
Part of the William Patterson Broadcast Network. Brave New Radio.
Brave New Radio. Give us your tired, your poor, your hungry, your rockers, your punks, your freaks, your geeks, your Greeks, your party animals, your gangsters, your commuters, your residents, your students, your alums, your lawyers, your truckers, your calls, your tweets. And we'll give you rock, classic, indie, punk, alternative, easy, hard, raps, rhymes, mixes, and drops. We'll give you kick-ass music because we're WPSC 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio. Sound good?
The views and opinions expressed on this show are solely those of the host and guest, and are not necessarily supported by WPSC 88.7 FM, station management, or the station owner, William Patterson University. Anyone wanting to offer differing opinions may do so by calling the show at 973-720-2738. Abusive callers will be rejected. Now here's your program on WP 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio.
Well, good morning to you. And yes, indeed, it is another Saturday morning, and it is another edition of The Reading Circle with your host, Marc Medley. And we're kicking off, as I said, another edition, and my guest is already on the line, so we're going to get her introduced shortly. But those of you who've been listening for any amount of time, you know we have a Saturday morning ritual and routine. And that is where I read from two selections to kick the show off, as well as provide the weather for you. And then I introduce my guest, and then our interview will be underway. So without further delay, we're going to go ahead and do just that. I'm going to go ahead and give you the weather right off the bat. And I can tell you, as that song says, at least up here in the northeast area, baby, it's cold outside, and it's not even into the winter months yet. But right now in the Wayne, New Jersey area, we're down to 26.2 degrees. That's where we are at the moment. Expecting to go today to a high of 42, and then going to drop back to a low of 29 later this evening. But it's going to be clear today. And then on tomorrow, Sunday, expect it to be mostly cloudy, a high of 47 with a low of 37, a high of 48 and a low of 37. And then as we get on into Monday, expect a high of 52 with a low of 31. It's going to be raining. Looks like it's a 90% chance of rain on Monday. And then on Tuesday, partly cloudy, 34 as a high, 22 as a low. And rounding out the forecast, 35 as a high on Wednesday, 26 as a low. Expected to be clear. But that is our forecast for the next few days. So whatever paraphernalia you need to take to keep yourself comfortable, make sure you do that. All right. Well, as you know, for those of you who are first-time listeners, welcome. And for those of you who listen on a weekly basis, again, welcome to you. And you know how we do. You know what we do. I read from two books. One is from Until Today by Iyanla Vanzant, and the other is What Can Happen When We Pray. Both of those are perpetuals, meaning there is no year associated with them, only the date. So you can read these books year after year. And the chances, especially those of you who listen to the show, the chances of you hearing something twice on here is very slim, since we come together once per week. So out of the book, What Can Happen When We Pray, for today, November the 15th, is Why You Can Smile. Today's prayer: most powerful and all-knowing God, I thank you for your protection and for keeping me in your care. I am confident and trust in you. The situation in which I live is not hopeless because you are here. And I am not helpless because you have strengthened me in the truth of your being. With all of my love, I praise your name. Amen. Today's reflection: here we are permitted to observe a heroic trial. A trial in which Yahweh is up against the nations of the world with their gods. Yahweh has all power, whether they regard him or not. Then God assures Israel that they are chosen and will be saved. It is in the same story repeated in our lives. The world is in a state of chaos. There are killings on all sides. Parents killing children and children killing parents. There are students killing teachers and teachers abusing students. Everyone has someone to believe in. Yahweh, Jesus, Buddha, crystals, psychics, and themselves. But we who know God do not have to fear, for God is with us. All right, that's out of the book, What Can Happen When We Pray, from the book Until Today by Iyanla Vanzant. Iyanla says, for today, November the 15th, the greatest service I can offer is learning to recognize the root of the problem. Television evangelist Reverend Creflo Dollar once said, when you get to the root, you will grow fruit. He was in essence saying the root of a problem is the cause of the problem. The root feeds and nurtures the entire plant. The same is true with a recurring problem that you may face in life. You cannot solve a problem by pruning the stem. You have to get to the root of a problem in order to uproot it. When you get to the root, you find the core issue, the foundation on which the problem has been built. A core issue is a belief that is imprinted on the consciousness. Let us say, for example, that you believe life has to be difficult. Try as you may to make your life easy, peaceful, or joy-filled, you will attract experiences and situations that support that core belief. What you may not realize is that you have root rot. There is a rotten belief in your thought system. All core beliefs manifest themselves as experiences. When something unpleasant happens in your life, call for the core belief. Get still. Take a few deep breaths and ask yourself, what is at the core of this experience? In other words, what is it that I think, say, or do that supports the existence of this problem? Undoubtedly, your first instinct will be to say that you had nothing to do with what is going on. It's them. It's not my fault. This is the very thinking that will allow your root rot to spread. Remember the very thinking that will allow remember you are responsible for every experience in your life. Experiences come to show you what you really believe. Pull up the root and it will die. Until today, you may have been pinching off little pieces of a problem just because you did not understand that you must pull the sucker up from the roots. Just for today, closely examine any and all challenges in your life. Ask the Holy Spirit to bring you to your awareness the root, the cause of the problem. Then ask for guidance about how to plant a new belief that serves a greater good in your consciousness. Today I'm devoted to eliminating root rot and rotten roots from my own consciousness. That's from the book Until Today by Iyanla Vanzant. As I shared with you a couple of minutes ago, my guest is on the line with me, and she is Eartha Watts-Hicks. And I'm going to tell you about her, and then we're going to take a short information sharing moment, and then we will be on our way with our interview. On June 13th, 2013, Eartha Watts-Hicks was recognized as a literary game changer by the NYCHA branch of the NAACP, and presented with the Just R.E.A.D, the R.E.A.D award in the fiction category. Eartha is a member of the acclaimed Harlem Writers Guild and an honors graduate of the State University of New York College at Old Westbury. For many years, she assumed the role of stay-at-home mom. She is the former editor and director of publications for Cultivating Our Sisterhood International Association, that's COS /ANET or IANET. A freelance writer, she blogs for futureexecutives.org, and her articles have appeared in several online publications, including theurbanbooksource.com, Harlem World Magazine, and Cultivating Our Sisterhood International Association's COSIANET. Eartha is also a songwriter and a music publisher. All right, registered with the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, ASCAP. Now, those in the listening audience, you know what I'm going to say, that the music in the background is my original CD. You know that was the perfect opportunity for it. The completion of her first novel, Love Changes, a novel with a soon-to-be-released companion music soundtrack, was the culmination of years of independent study, as well as continuing education coursework in creative writing, fiction, and poetry. She received at Marymount Manhattan College, City College of New York, the Frederick Douglass Creative Arts Center, the Center for Black Literature at Medgar Evers College, and the Intensive Advanced Novel Workshop at Hurston Writers Week. Eartha is currently writing her second novel. Eartha Watts-Hicks is now also a Project Enterprise certified entrepreneur, offering professional writing and editing services. For more information about these services, please send an inquiry by email to earthatone@aol.com. Eartha, welcome to the Reading Circle with Marc Medley.
Hi, Mark. How are you this morning?
I am doing well for it to be this cold on a November Saturday morning. The people who follow me every week, they know my crazy, quirky sense of humor, and they also know, because I say a lot of things, from time to time, but they also know I am not a cold weather bunny. For me, I always declare there is a warm weather climate in my future. And so whenever I get up on a morning like this, when I stepped out the house this morning, whew, it's cold out here. But other than that, it is good to be alive. It's good to be able to feel the cold, so no need to complain. And we're going to, like I said, we're going to share some information with the listening audience. I used to say we're taking a break, but we're not taking a break. I'm not going anywhere, and I don't want the audience to go anywhere, and certainly don't want the guests to go anywhere. So I turned it now and said, look, we're going to share some information with you. And during that time frame, I need you to listen, but I also need you to get on all your social media sites and let somebody know that we're on the air. So listening audience, you know the drill. Get on all your Twitter sites. I'm going to do the same while the information is on. I'm going to get on Hootsuite and let everybody know that Eartha's on with me. So I need you to text somebody, tweet somebody, Facebook somebody, Instagram somebody, LinkedIn somebody, Pinterest somebody, all the different social media sites out there. I need you to get on there and let them know that Eartha is on the line with me. You don't want to miss the interview, because I'm sure it's going to be fun and informative and inspiring. So again, this is the chance for you to do your part to let somebody else know, to share the Reading Circle. Do that, and we shall return with you, at least talking with you, in a minute or so.
Yeah, salad on Saturday, fruit on Friday, bubble on Thursday, water Wednesday, touch your toes Tuesday, let's move Monday, swap us next Sunday. 60 minutes of physical activity a day and eating well can help get your child healthy. So keep them active and eating well every day. Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov. That's letsmove.gov. A message from USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council.
Think carrying 10 or 20 pounds of extra weight isn't much? We went to a park, handed 10 and 20-pound sandbags to people aged 45 to 60, and asked if we could follow them around.
10 pounds makes a big difference. Oh, I definitely felt it in my knees.
A few extra pounds each year can cause joint pain and lead to serious chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease. Wouldn't you like to drop that weight and stop picking up more? Visit hhs.gov/1 pound at a time to find out how. Obesity happens 1 pound at a time. So does preventing it. Brought to you by HHS and NIH.
Well, as I said, I didn't go anywhere. Eartha didn't go anywhere. And hopefully you didn't go anywhere other than to your computer to either turn up your speakers or to, as I said, to go on the social media and advise someone to get up and tune in to the show. All right, Eartha's book that we're going to be talking about is Love Changes. It is an urban, sensual, and spiritual. This is a narrative of Maya, an endearing young woman, conveyed in part through the devices of poetry and music. Maya loves, or Mia, whichever way you look at that, it's M-I-A, love quits college and gets a job in order to support her live-in boyfriend, Spider, and finance his education. Spider, though ambitious, works only as an intern for a small record label. Still, Maya is anxious to marry him. When she becomes pregnant, his mother, and Ramel, her handsome and flirtatious best friend, all think She has made a bad decision. Gee, I wonder why they think that. Now Maya cares for both her newborn baby and Spider. Tethered to a low-wage job to pay the bills, she's hoping he will make a commitment. Spider, himself underemployed, remains resistant. This causes tension between the two, and matters are only made worse by family secrets, grudges, and lies. Arguments get more personal, even after Spider lands an exciting job in the music industry. Meanwhile, quote-unquote good friend Ramel is offering a shoulder and a lot more to lean on. Maya fights to salvage her relationship, but pressure from family and Ramel's not-so-private attraction may be more than she can handle. And again, Eartha, what we're going to do is, because I just whet the audience's appetite, we're going to work our way up to Love Changes. But the first question I'm going to pose to you is, where did the writing begin? Was it something you've always done as a child, whenever you were in grade school, high school, college? Where did it begin, and kind of when did you decide you were going to be an author?
I skipped a grade. I skipped sixth grade, from sixth grade to eighth grade, and at the end of sixth grade, my teachers and my parents had enrolled me in a gifted program that was at Immaculate Conception School in the Bronx. And there is where I took, over the summer, I took poetry and journal writing. So that's where I actually began writing period. So I took poetry and journal writing for like the next 2 summers when I was 11 and 12. And then when I was roughly around 13, I started writing songs. So that's where my writing began. And I had been writing songs as a hobby, hoping to get a song on the radio for like a number of years. And it was in 2001 that I took my song catalog and looked at, where the story that they were all, that seemed to, the thread that flowed through all of them. And I just turned that song catalog into chapters. And that's Love Changes.
So now where is the creativity coming from? Is that something like you always had a wild or a vivid imagination or a very good imagination? Or did that develop over time from observing people? Or because I ask this question because I work with children every day, and some of them really, and maybe we can attribute some of it to video games and technology and social media, so forth. But some of them, whenever it's time for them to make up a story, just go blank. When you say, all right, boys and girls, I just want you to anything you want to write about, you can write about it. And they just kind of look at you like, I don't know, I don't have anything to write, nothing to say, so forth and so on. So I always challenge them. I said, now look, if you were in trouble, you'd make up something real quick. So,
it came from everywhere. It came from music. I was inspired by a few songs. Be Happy by Mary J. Blige, Same Place, Same Time by Crystal, and Keep On Moving by Soul II Soul.
Do you play a musical instrument?
No, I don't play a musical instrument.
So when you say writing songs, you're talking about writing the lyrics?
Lyrics.
Ah, okay. So you're putting the lyrics down, and then... So have you? Okay, let me reverse the question. Have your lyrics been put to music?
Yes. There's actually a song that's on iTunes and an MP4 on Amazon, which is called "Baby, You're the Only One for Me." That actually is a companion song to the novel.
Okay.
And it's "Baby, You're the Only One." 1 is spelled out, and 4 is the number 4. And I also had a song performed by April Harris, formerly of the singing group Seduction, who remade Heartbeat in the early 90s. They sang one of my songs in the festival circuit, so they toured the country with it.
All right, so it's actually out there. Mm-hmm. So back to where you began writing. So it sounds like your teachers and folks around you were encouraging you to write and to be creative.
Yes, my teachers were giving me advanced books from the time I was in first grade. I didn't realize until recently, but I had been reading since I was about 3. So, but when I was in first grade, they gave me third grade books, and by the time I was in 4th grade, I was reading Edgar Allan Poe.
Now, is that reading coming from you just really liked to read as a child, or was it just because they're giving me books, or which way was it? Was it they saw that you really liked to read, or did you begin to like to read because you were given books?
No, I loved to read, and then I loved getting A's. So a lot of the books that I used to
That's right.
You know, so a lot of the books I used to get, you know, because we had the Scholastics, they used to come to us like once a month. And my mother would order like $30 worth of books for me in like the 70s, which was an unspeakable amount of money.
Right. That's right.
And, you know, so a lot of the books that I used to get were books on how to get better grades. You know, like the A+ Guide to Good Grades,
That's right.
the A+ Guide to Good Writing. I had the whole A+ series. Which probably explain why I skipped a grade.
That's right. But see, I'm asking this question because the impetus for this show was to encourage people to read more. When they put the show together 13 years ago, the director, the station manager at the time, whenever he brought me on as the host, he said, I've been looking for someone to do a show about reading and about books. And at the time I was teaching school. And he said, you're a teacher. I thought you would be perfect for the show. But then that's the whole thing behind the show, is to introduce works to the listening audience with the hope that it will whet their appetite and they'll want to go out and purchase the book and read the book. So I asked that question because what I have found is most of my writers, if not all of my writers and authors that I've interviewed on the show, were avid readers as kids. And again, as I said, I work with kids every day, and whenever we really try to push reading on most of them, they look at us and the teachers like they have three heads. It's like, read, like, what is, like, what, why would I want to do that? Oh, I don't like reading. Reading is boring. So forth. And it really is a challenge, at least for the community and the kids that I serve, because when I look at our language, when I look at our test scores, our state assessment scores, we're extremely poor in language arts. They even do better in math than they do in language arts. But in language arts, we go red.
Wow.
That the children really don't read well. I was in a classroom the other day, and I was looking over the shoulder of a student, and the teacher had put a prompt on the board saying, the bus driver stopped the bus and shouted, everybody get off. You had to get off the bus. It wasn't at your stop. So I want you to describe for your friends and family the unfamiliar surroundings and what it felt like. So as I'm walking around the classroom, I look over one young man's shoulder, and his first sentence was, I got off the bus and I felt lose. L-O-S-E. And so I said, son, let's go through that sentence again. I thought maybe he had, put the wrong letter at the end of lost. So I said, let's go through that sentence again. I got off the bus and I felt lose. Does that sound right to you? He said, yes. And I got off the bus and I felt lose. That sounds right to you? He says, yes. So now whenever I go to erase the E and put the T, he gives me all kinds of resistance. No. And so I'm sharing this story, and I'm going to share it later on today because I'm doing a keynote address later in the day, but I'm going to share that same story again just to give folks a feel for the lay of the land of many of the students in areas. I want to say urban areas because I'm not sure if it happens in the suburban areas or not, but I'm sure it does. But my point is, with that story, it's hard in 2014 to come across like a kid who loves to read. And I don't know if that was the case in the 70s when you and I were in school or not, because I love to read as well. So when you were doing all this reading as a kid, were you kind of like teased as a bookworm, or were you just all like as a part of the gifted program, all of you love to read, or how did that whole thing play out?
Well, amongst my friends, well, number one, the school that I went to in today's term was unusual, phenomenal, exceptional. Because I know in I think fifth grade, when our standardized test scores came back, I think my reading was a 12.6 and my math was a 12.9, and I was in the fifth grade. And then when we took our scores and circulated them amongst each other, there were about 5 of us that had similar results. So that was St. Jerome School in the very, very South Bronx, 217 Alexander Avenue or 218 Alexander Avenue, I believe, but it's right on 138th Street. But that was the results they were having with us, my class, back in 1979 and 1980. So, like me and my own friends, my own circle of friends, we used to play school. We had textbooks. We brought the textbooks home, and we played school. And me, my actual hobby was to go through my textbooks and teach myself the material so that when I was in class, if I had a question, I could ask a question. So I was always flipping ahead.
So now, were you the exception or kind of like the rule?
Well, I mean, I'm not quite sure because me and my friends, we were all in the same category. We were all doing the same things. We were all, we played school.
That's right. I mean, and I'm listening to you, and it's like, because that old adage of birds of a feather flock together holds true there. And another reason why we're always telling our young people, be careful of the friends that you choose, because they do influence and sway your behavior. So if you're choosing friends who are readers and who love to play school and who are academically inclined, most likely you're going to be academically inclined as well. And if you're choosing friends that are gangbangers, most likely you're going to be a gangbanger. So it's very, we really try to encourage the youth to really choose your friends wisely, because it really does make a difference. And I'm sitting here overjoyed to hear, and every now and again I come across students like that. I don't want to paint the picture that all my students are totally ignorant. They're not. But at the same time, you're testament to selection of friends, support from teachers and parents and everybody else, and what can happen as a result of that. If you've just joined us, you're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley. My guest this morning is Eartha Watts-Hicks, and she is the author of Love Changes. And we're working our way up to how Love Changes came about. Because not only, has she written the book, but a part of the book actually is poetry. And so we're going to share some more information with you, and then when we're going to come back, we're going to continue talking or working our way up to Love Changes. So again, you know the drill. Take this time to let someone know that we are indeed on the air.
The cow says,
I love you.
To a child, it's just something else to play with. Lock it up, because 1.7 million children in the U.S. are living with unlocked and loaded guns. Get involved at ceasefireusa.org.
Hey, parents of children with asthma, here's another hit from the Breathe Easies.
Don't smoke in the house. Don't smoke in the house. Don't smoke around the kids in the house. Don't smoke in the car. Don't smoke in the house. Don't break my heart.
Preventing asthma attacks can be as simple as making your home and car smoke-free zones. For more Breathe Easy tips to help stop asthma attacks, go to noattacks.org. Brought to you by the EPA and the Ad Council.
Once upon a time, old Scrooge sat down before the fire.
Humbug.
With great astonishment, Marley's ghost came through the heavy door and passed into the room.
What do you want with me?
You will be haunted by three spirits. I'd rather not.
To read A Christmas Carol and other books online, go to www.read.gov. Explore new worlds. Read. Brought to you by the Library of Congress and the Ad Council.
You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley on Brave New Radio.
Yes, indeed. You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley. We're heard live each Saturday morning from 6 o'clock a.m. to 7 o'clock a.m., followed by the Good News in Song, which is the gospel music from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock. That's in the M&M hour from 7 to 8, and Martha and Friends from 8 to 9. My guest this morning is Eartha Watts-Hicks, and we're working our way up to her release of her book, Love Changes. And Eartha, as a child, was in the Gifted and Talented program. And Eartha, I'm very familiar with that program because I was actually principal of a Gifted and Talented school for a year. Mm-hmm. And so I'm very, very familiar with Gifted and Talented, as well as one of my daughters has been in the Gifted and Talented program. So I know what it's like to have, for lack of a better word, a brainiac, or to deal with the brainiacs. So that's why I was asking you earlier, excuse me, your friends, the kids that you grew up with or played with on the block or in the area, did they find it strange that you actually liked and wanted to read, or you wanted to do homework, or you wanted to get the A? Because a lot of times with the kids that I'm working with, it's just not cool to be smart. And like, I have some of my kids that are brilliant, but they don't want anybody to know it because they think being smart is being a nerd or being a geek, or, you know, something else that they associate with being derogatory, which kind of like blows me away, because that never, for me, I had no problem being the geek. I had no problem being the nerd, the bookworm.
I mean, well, you know, the funny thing about it was when I was in the neighborhood, I played with the neighborhood kids. I didn't bring my books into the park, and when the neighborhood kids got a little too rough, I stayed home and read. Right. So it was that kind of thing, because I grew up in the projects, so it was rough growing up. But school was, you know, there was like the top third of the class was exceptional. And, you know, we had some average students, but the exceptional students were really exceptional, and there were a lot of us. It wasn't just me. And I also know, like, I was that kid who, at family functions, or if I stayed somewhere for the weekend or for the holidays or for the summer, I brought books with me.
Right. See, I was the same way. I even to this day, there's no such thing as downtime for me. And people say, but you got to take some time. But you need to understand, when I'm reading, that is my downtime. I mean, that relaxes me. Reading relaxes me. Some people say, do you ever turn off? Yes, I do. When I'm reading, that's when I'm turned off. I'm into what I'm reading. But as far as that stressing me out, no, that's not a stress for me. That's a love for me. That's a passion for me. So I don't go anywhere without a book. Before Kindle and the e-readers, I always had a bag of books with me, and now on the Kindle I have over 100 some books downloaded in there. So that has stayed with me since a child. And I'm noticing here now, because it's interesting, even like all the different schools you went to, they were all named after like really go-getter people. Medgar Evers, Frederick Douglass, so forth and so on. Even the school names were inspirational. So at what point, as you now journeyed on, were you writing poetry like in high school and so forth?
Well, in high school, I was writing songs, particularly love songs. I don't know what I knew about love at age 13, but I thought I was... and now that I've gotten older, I look back at my old songs, and I notice that they're watered-down versions of Luther Vandross.
Okay.
It's Luther Vandross who hadn't lived life yet.
That's right. Say Luther prior to. That's right. What, you say A. Let me see. What is that? BC BL before. Say before Luther.
like one song I wrote when I must have been about 13 was called "We Will Be Together," and it went, "We will be together from now until whenever, baby, till the end of time. My love for you will always be true until the end of time." And then when I look at the song and I listen to like the melody that I had in my head, it was "Don't You Know" by Luther.
But yes, but I mean, so you were writing that because poetry, as far as poetry books go, as far as book sales, poetry books are sometimes challenging to sell. And I say that because I worked on a poetry book with a very good friend of mine, and I know she was always like challenged with trying to get the books to move. But poetry is beautiful, and what our kids don't realize is rap is poetry. That's all rap is. Rap is just poetry with a beat.
Yeah. It really is, you know.
So as you now put Love Changes together, were they poems that were already on the shelf, or were they specifically written as a part of Love Changes?
They were initially songs.
Okay.
Songs that I had written, but for whatever reason couldn't get placed. And I had built this song catalog of all this material that I said, you know, it is so hard because in the music business, it's not as simple as writing a song and mailing in a resume and getting that song placed. You have to know somebody, be somewhere, shake the right hand, speak to the right person, and have the right connections in order for everything to fall into place and get that song on the radio, and then you may not even get credit for it.
Correct.
So with that being the case, I got tired of the hope and the dream and nothing coming from it, especially because I couldn't sing. Couldn't sing or,
So I could write the
compose
lyrics.
music. Yeah, I could write lyrics, and I would have a whole melody in my head, but I needed a producer and a singer and someone willing to take this song and make it their material, and that I could not find. So with that being the case, I said, well, if I wrote a novel, at least I have the power to do something with it.
Right. And in 2014, the technology works in our favor because we really, those of us who are independent artists, can truly do our own things now, where in years ago, you would have to get in touch with the big publishing houses and go through the rejection letters and all that stuff. So tell me a little bit about the Sisterhood International Association.
Oh, Cultivating our Sisterhood International Association. That is a women's, I call it a women's Christian fellowship group, but it's really a women's, it's a women's social support organization, and their motto comes from Corinthians, which is one plants, one waters, but God gives the increase. And it was founded by a very, very dear woman by the name of Lois Reddick. And I actually met Lois in 2003 at a spiritual retreat. And she told me then she had a vision for this organization, and she, said that she would follow up with me about it. And one day she called me on my birthday, or on or around my birthday. It was either the day before or the day after. And I had no plans, nowhere to go, nothing to do. And she said, how would you like to go to a gospel cruise? I was like, okay.
Sure.
And I hadn't spoken to her in a good while. So I said, okay. So I get up and I, get dressed and I go over to, I believe it was Chelsea Piers, and I get on this yacht. And it's a fabulous gospel concert, breakfast. And I'm sitting in the midst of these women who were phenomenal women, phenomenal, beautiful women of all colors who were editors and, who were editors and, worked for, Morgan Stanley and NYU University. So they were editors and directors and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, wow. And at the time I was a part-time calendar clerk, so.
Right.
So she says, how would you like to join, my organization? And I was like, wow, because, to me, they were so illustrious and brilliant. And I was, a stay-at-home mom with a little part-time job. So I was like, sure. And I had joined the newsletter because I said, I have dreams to write a novel. At that point, it was dreams to write a novel. I had a little, poked around pages here and there, but it wasn't like a massive manuscript just yet. And I joined the newsletter and wrote articles, the newsletter team. I wrote articles, and within a year and a half of that, I was director of publication, and within another 6 months to a year or so, I was on the board of directors. But it's a wonderful organization in that women in various stages of their development are I wouldn't even call it mentored. We're all thrown in the mix with the executives, and we're all sharing information and pushing and supporting each other and giving workshops and teaching. And if you need this, we'll send you to her. And if you need that, call her. And it's like a sisterhood of women who are just going to share and help you. So by that, wonderful organization. One of the, there's some finance and love changes where, the research is spot on about a stock analyst. I'm not a stock analyst. I researched it up until I was able to take it to as far as it could go. And then I reached out to one of my COSIA sisters, and she was a stock analyst. She says, no, take this out. That's right. That's good. That's good. And don't do that. Say this. And that's how my stock analyst research, which is, it sounds like I'm an expert in the book, but it wasn't me. I mean, it was me to a certain degree, and it definitely was God. And God putting the people in my life to make that happen.
And see, again, networking, you cannot beat that. You cannot beat networking. And you never know who you meet is going to be the person that will introduce you to whatever the next person. That's why the more you network, because you never know one day in terms of getting the song on the radio. You said earlier, like who you know, talk to this one. That's exactly how it gets done. So you just never know one day whenever you're not going to come across someone who's like the producer or the director or something or the station manager of a radio station. Like, let me hear your stuff. and we'll put it on there. You just never know. And that's fascinating that from her calling you and saying, would you like to go to the gospel cruise, this, that, and the other, that you met and wound up being in the organization and then moving through it so quickly.
You know, a phenomenal organization of a lot of the women from COSIA are teachers and professors, and but it was all walks of life, lawyers, chefs. I mean, just women with these goals that, we all had goals. We all had goals to go from where we were to somewhere else, and we helped each other reach those goals.
Well, that's what it's all about. I mean, in terms of this whole thing of being selfish and all that kind of stuff, that to me just does not fly. It just does not work, because it's like none of us don't have a patent on anything per se, and really none of it is ours anyway, when you really think about it. So, when you're helping somebody else or doing what you do to help others, you actually wind up getting helped yourself. And I think if more people understood that, the further along the entire world would get. Well, I'm going to share some more information with the listening audience, and we are now to the point where I'm going to have you talk a little bit about the creation of Love Changes whenever we get back together on the air here. So, listening audience, let someone know. I'm doing it as I sit here. Whenever I go off the air and I'm listening to Eartha, I'm actually sitting here on my social media sites telling folks to tune in. So it's going out to various sites through Hootsuite, and it's going through my Facebook site, it's going to my LinkedIn site and all my Twitter sites. So anybody that's up and following me, I'm encouraging them to tune in to gobrave.org. And if you're in the northern New Jersey area, it's WP 88.7 FM.
Hi, my name is Stan Myers, and I'm here at FM 88.7. I do a jazz show called Just a Mood. And if you like the music, anything from Louis to Lester Boyd, I'm your man. That's Sunday afternoons, 3 to 6. Looking to hear from you, okay?
Want to expand your horizons? Want to broaden your mind? Well, listen to the only show of its kind. Listen to The Reading Circle.
We bring you what's going on in the world of reading, in the world of books. Sometimes the book may be from 20, 30 years ago, because the thing about books, they are timeless, particularly if there's a good message. And then there are times when we do books that are hot off the press, that were just released.
Listen to The Reading Circle every Saturday morning from 6 a.m.
The Reading Circle with your host, Marc Medley.
Only on WP 88.7 FM.
You're listening to The Reading Circle with Marc Medley on Brave New Radio.
Yes, indeed, you are. Eartha was talking about music, and I have to use this time to plug my own music. The music you're hearing in the background is originally written, produced, and played by yours truly. Matter of fact, the one playing now is At the Beach, and that's from my first CD, Go Up on the Third Limb, and that's available on iTunes, Amazon, Reverb Nation, and all the whatever the different digital sites you can download it on. It's there. Earlier in the interview, Eartha was talking about she was writing love songs at 13, and now she is an adult and has written a novel. So, Eartha, as you wrote Love Changes, where did that whole concept come from, and was it connected to the love songs you were writing at 13, or now that you knew more about love as an adult, how did Love Changes come about?
Well, Love Changes was actually connected to the songs that I had written as an adult. And the themes for the individual chapters were based on the concepts for the song. And then there was also like a running theme about love itself and how it changes and how it reflects to God's love. So it all came together. And it was also inspired by a painting that I had on the wall in my apartment by artist Alonzo Adams called Lay Your Heavy Burdens Down. And that was always a dream of mine to have that as the cover art for the novel, but by the time I had reached out to him, and him and his team were actually eager to do something with me, but by the time the novel was actually put together, that piece had been licensed already.
It's interesting in terms of inspiration and where it comes from, because one of the songs on my second CD is called Vacuuming the Floor. And the inspiration from that came from the fact that my studio office in my house is in the basement, and my wife was upstairs vacuuming the floor atop me. And I could hear in the vacuum cleaner, like the key that the vacuum cleaner was, the motor was running in. And I was downstairs, my keyboard was down there, and I just started playing with the vacuum cleaner. And I'm saying all that to say, you're saying the storyline, some of it was inspired by a painting. And it's just interesting. You just never know where inspiration is going to come from. So as I read earlier about what Love Changes is about in terms of the characters, how did you do your character development? Where did Maya Love come from? Where did Spider come from? And Ramel, what's his name? Ramel, yes. Where did they come from?
Well, the Mia Love character was based on how I was as a person at age 16. If I had put that person in a capsule and didn't have any outside influences and just took that person and matured that person to age 25, what that person would have been like. And also in that, she was the best of all the women in my family, like little characteristics from each of us. You know, so Mia Love is supposed to be symbolic of all of us at that age. You know, you can't tell us anything. We always think we're right.
That's right.
We know everything, don't want to listen. You know, we think our way is the only way.
That's right.
And nobody understands us. So that's where the Mia Love, you know, like me, myself, when I was age 25, I was more subdued, more happy-go-lucky. But that angst of when I was about 16 years old, that angst and that sass and that sassiness, that was what I had grown to be the Mia Love character, you know, combined with that desire to please and prove.
Yes. I have one sister, and it was interesting, the relationship between mothers and sons, mothers and daughters at that particular age, because it's funny because the daughters tend to, like, the relationship goes into a tension stage until about 20, 21, 22, whenever you get older. But you're right, during that period of time, it gets like really crazy with that I know more than you thing. And and I laugh now because now that I'm older and now that I work with so many kids and I see it, it's really funny. And I have to tell them, I said, you know what? I'm 4 times your age. I don't think that you can know more than me because I've been on the planet 4 times longer than you and I've gone through more experiences than you. But at that age, we really do, because I'm a victim myself at that age. You really do think you know more than someone who's been on the planet 3, 4 more times than you have. So it's actually Mia. It's not Maya. It's Mia. Isn't that the lady, the young woman that was just elected to Congress out of Utah, I believe? Isn't that her name?
Mia Love, and she was elected to Republican, first-time Congresswoman, black.
That's correct. I thought so because I said, that name looks real for me. And I know that's because I saw her name in the news as well. So Mia Love, all right, that's an interesting coincidence.
Her name is Mia Love. And the funny thing was, I started writing this in 2001.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I had never heard of Mia Love until last year when she was running. Because she ran for another office prior to, or maybe it was Congress she was running for then. But either that's when her name popped for me when I saw her running for office then. And then just now when I was reading, you know, the description of the book, it jumped at me again. I said, I think that's the same name, Mia Love. So, and then you have, of course, you have Spider, which of course that has to be his nickname.
Spider, his name, the character's name in the book, full name is Tobiah Osbert Snyder. And he plays basketball, so he ends up with the nickname Spider.
Okay, so that's Spider. And then you have, you have Ramel.
Right, Ramel Ulysses Goodwin.
So now, whenever you were developing these characters, I'm always interested with the authors in terms of character development and their technique and style. Did your characters for you like live with you, eat with you, sleep with you, walk with you, talk with you?
Yes.
So, you know, talk a little bit about that experience.
Well, the funny thing about writing a novel and character development is first you sort of put all the ingredients out that you want to be in the characters, and you have everything all situated. You're like, I want them to be this, that, the other, and then after a while, the character goes, that's not me. You know?
That's why this part always fascinates me, because you're not the first. And that's why this question is one of my favorite questions. Even though I don't have standard questions, there's some that are recurring. And this is one of them, because I always find that interesting that the characters come to the point wherein they're like, it's just like they're there.
Yeah, and like when you really, really tap into who your characters are, the characters are funnier than you are.
Right.
You know? You know, so, because, like, me being writerly, you say something writerly, you put something on the page writerly, but when that character, you're in tune to that character, the character's punchline is better than yours.
I've shared this story many times on the air in this particular area. I had an author one time that said his intent in the beginning of the book was he was going to kill the character off. But as he developed the character and wrote the book, he liked the character so much he couldn't do it. So now the character wound up, and he had to rewrite parts of the book based on the fact that he no longer was now going to kill this character off. But it was like what you just described. It was character was like, no, you're not going to kill me. No. And
you know, when I initially wrote Love Changes, or me writing Love Changes, it was my intention for the Ramel character not to be likable. He was a womanizer. He was arrogant. He was stubborn, and he was, you know, selfish. So it was my intention for him not to be likable. But when I was in a reading situation, reading sections of it as I was developing it, the women in the audience were going, I'm like, what's going wrong? They're not supposed to like him. You're supposed to like the other one. Right? So I would read the next day. Well, when is Ramel coming back? And they love Ramel and they love Mommy, the mommy character.
Okay. Now, I see the first line says urban, sensual, and spiritual. How do you combine all of those?
Well, it's really all connected. It's I think our love relationships, what others teach us about our love relationship with God, and then and with it being a love triangle, it connects to like our desire to connect with God and the world. So
right.
it all ties in.
It does. Now tell me, right before we went on the air, you were telling me a little about Nikki Giovanni. Talk to me a little bit about what that experience was like.
Oh, goodness. I actually, I handed Miss Giovanni a copy of the novel. And then I went to check the mail one day, and I got a card in the mail. And I said, well, let me read this card. And I'm reading the card, and I'm like, okay, what does this say? Right? I'm like, okay, I'm trying to read the handwriting, and it said, imagine my pleasure and surprise when I get to page 140 and saw me. Love Changes is wonderful, perfect for the beach. When I sit in the sun, I read. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. Who is it? And then I looked at the top of the postcard. It said Nikki Giovanni, and I almost passed out.
And the thing about Nikki is she is good people. She really is, as the kids can say, she is good people. Because
oh my God,
I understand, because with social media and everything now today, people tend to respond more than they did back in the day, as the kids can say, when we used to just write them a letter. But I had that same experience when I just on a lark just said, I think either I caught up with Nikki on Twitter or Facebook or one of them. I don't know which one it was, but I kind of sent a line and said, well, I would love to interview you on the show. And this is going back 3 or 4 years ago. And she responded back, I'd love to be on it. And I was the same way you was. Like, what? You're kidding me. I mean, because Nikki Giovanni goes back in history. I mean, in terms of the poetry and the teaching and so forth and so on. And she agreed to be on the show. And she came on and was just as gracious. And we had about, like, the interviews in my archives. So if you ever want to hear it, you can go back into the archives and you can pull it up. But I know exactly what you described when you saw her name on the postcard. And the fact, and see, let me tell you what that does for me in terms of what that shows and what it ought to show, because Nikki's doing it exactly right. And that is, regardless of what our stature and status is, whatever, regardless of what fortune or fame, at the end of the day, we are all still human beings. And there would be no such thing as a star if it were not for fans. So anytime, and I've been with the rich and famous, I've met Colin Powell, I've met various sports coaches, I've met various actors and actresses, but anytime you get to the point wherein, because I think I'm all that in a bag of chips and you're nothing, that I have a problem with that. I really do. So I'm saying all that to say Nikki's very down to earth, very real, regardless of her status. So
I mean, she gave me a life-changing moment.
I know it was. And that is exactly the way it ought to be, because there would be no Michael Jordans and Michael Jacksons if it wasn't for all the people who were following them. So for them to get to the point to feel as if I don't have to be bothered with you, And don't get me wrong, I realize, the magnitude of people who are constantly looking for your attention, this, that, and the other. But still, it's just the persona, the not being arrogant, the willing to take the time. Like I said, that was very nice of her to take the time to write, even if it wasn't a letter, it was a postcard. But I would put that in my scrapbook or somewhere.
I still have them.
I know you do. Because, anybody from the African American community, if they know their history, they would know the name Nikki Giovanni. They would know that name. So, all right, we're down to the last 5 minutes or so, and I always turn that over, the mic over to the guest in terms of promotion. Folks want to get a copy now, I'm sure, after we whet their appetite with Mia and with Spider and with Ramel and Mama. Matter of fact, before we even do that, you're in poetry, so you do spoken word?
Well, yes.
Okay. So, because I know, like, my guest last week was a poet as well, and they've done various spoken words. But in any event, at this point, this is where you have the opportunity to tell anywhere you're going to be, any book signings, if you're doing any spoken word, any websites, how can they get a copy of Love Changes? Is it an e-reader as well? This is your chance to promote, and you can say anything with the exception of the actual price of the book. That's the only limitation we have, that we can't say the dollar amount, but anything else in terms of how folks can get a copy of Love Changes, you can fire away. Okay.
Well, Love Changes is available at select Barnes & Noble retailers. The last I checked, it was at Barnes & Noble Court Street in Brooklyn and the Howard University Barnes & Noble. And then they had copies at Barnes & Noble Union Square. Right now, I'm not so sure if they have or don't have any left. You can also get it from Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Expresso.net, OnDemandBooks.com. Sisters Uptown Bookstore in Harlem. They have some copies, autographed copies, actually. And there's a new cover design which actually features a gorgeous young woman on it. And that particular copy, autographed copies of that particular cover design, is available strictly through my website at the time. And my website is www.earthatone.com. And it's Eartha Tone, like Earth Tone, but my name is Eartha, so it's earthatone.com. And Love Changes is also on Kindle.
Were you named after Eartha Kitt?
No, I was named after my aunt, Eartha Mae Harrison.
Eartha may have been named after Eartha Kitt then. It's a beautiful name, Eartha, and it's not one that we see often. Did you have anybody that has read Love Changes ask, was Mia you?
Everyone asks, is this about your life? Is this about your life? It's about your life. And no, it's not about my life. It's fiction. It's fiction. I went through similar things, but not exactly in this order, exactly how it happens with exactly these people, and these people exactly don't exist. There may be little aspects of their personality that came to me from different places or whatever, but the exact people in the story, exactly how the story progresses, no, it's not my life story.
Okay. Well, we are wrapping up another edition of the Reading Circle. Again, the book is Love Changes. And see, I love a play on words. So that can be taken in so many different directions, just those two words together. And I'm sure... And one thing I did do in this novel, especially with my connection to poetry, is the whole thing all through I'm playing on words and bouncing off and playing on words and puns. It's full of it all through. So the readers will definitely enjoy. I know they will. I'm going to download my copy today because, like I said, I still am old-fashioned. I like my old-fashioned book, but the Kindle is just so convenient because my iPad, anywhere I go, my iPad goes, so that means I always have a book with me. But I am going to download Love Changes today, and I will begin reading it. I'm always reading anywhere from 15 to 20 books at any given one time, and people look at me like, how are you able to do it? It's the same way you sit down and watch 2015 TV shows. How do you keep up with it the same way? It's the same concept. My mind works that way in books, the way yours work in TV. I mean, you sit down and watch, like, let's see, what is it? I guess it's 2 an hour if it's a half-hour sitcoms each. So if you sit down there for 3 hours, that's about, 6 shows or something like that. Somewhere. It's the same way you do it. It's the same way I read 6 books. I'll read one for a half hour, stop, read the next one, read the next one, so on. So there's nowhere I go that I don't have a book going on with me, and I just bounce between books. And I can keep every one of them on their own. I don't mix and merge them. So I'm going to download Love Changes. You've already piqued my curiosity. I want to see, just the first line did, the urban, sensual, and spiritual. That right off the bat, those 3 words piqued it. And then the fact that love changes is a play on words, because like I said, that can be interpreted in many ways. And then now you've just said, and you do a lot of play on words, so I know I want to read it. So I encourage you in the listening audience to download it or to go to the store as well. If Barnes & Noble or any of the book retailers don't have it, in 2014, they will order it for you. And they will send it to your house, or they will send it to the store and you can pick it up there. There's no reason why. That back in the day, like if the bookstore was out of it, like, okay, they out. But today, you can get it in so many different ways. It'll come right to your door within 2 or 3 days or so. The book is Love Changes. The author is Eartha Watts-Hicks. And her website is just as she said, spelled just like her name, Eartha, EARTHA, Tone, TONE.com. Think of it as her name and music together. She told us she writes songs, lyrics. So earthatone.com, and the book is Love Changes. Eartha, again, I thank you for rising early and joining me this morning, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you so much, Mark. It was a pleasure. Thank you so, so much.
All right, I'll be in touch. If everything worked the way it was supposed to, I should have a recording of it, and I usually wind up putting them into like a YouTube type thing where you can hear the interview. And I always just make the disclaimer, because every now and then the equipment will fail.
Oh, no.
And so I always pray it's not on any particular person, because I always hate to be the one to say, you know what, it didn't work this morning. But the last time I looked, everything was up and running. So sometime before the weekend is out, I should have it posted. It'll be all over the social media. It'll be all over LinkedIn and all the different sites, and I'll email you a copy as well.
Great. Thank you so, so much.
All right.
If you'd like to have me back to do a reading, like read a portion or section, I would definitely do that.
Oh, yeah, by all means. Matter of fact, I'm remiss, because normally I do ask the author to do that, because I like the listeners to hear it from the horse's mouth. So I will definitely do that.
Okay.
All right?
All righty. Thank you so much, Mark.
Have a great day.
You too.
Take care now.